layers of orthodox analysis have led to my unorthodox approach. Hi, I'm John, and welcome to Philosopher's Corner. Today we're going to talk about how approaching things and analyzing things in an orthodox manner over time, in my case, and I've cross-referenced it with other people, but in my case, led to seemingly an unorthodox approach to life, thinking, whatever you want to call it. And we'll get into the ins and outs of it. So previously we were discussing causation, cause and effect. One thing leads to the other on the simplest principled terms. You know, you go A into B into C, and and so on and so forth. There's a chain of causation, right? And a lot of the analysis of philosophy is to understand each of those moments and how the transitions occur, and to really get to the bottom of things, so to say. And when I went into philosophy, I had already been coming from a position of having some unorthodox events in my life or anomalous events in my life occur. And really, when I found out about philosophy, I found out that philosophy used to be sort of the highest form of thinking, because philosophy is a way of organizing systems of thought to approach thought. So philosophy was sort of where the wisdom of what they used to call the natural sciences, like physics or chemistry or whatever, would lead to. The sort of distilled wisdom of these different sciences could then be used as sort of building blocks for the thinking of a philosopher. Because in philosophy, once you get to the higher levels of it, you're coordinating systems of thought. And everybody thinks, well, if it's philosophical, then it can only be these sort of thought experiments or whatever. But that's the level of the philosopher. Like, when you get to it, you're sort of a thought scientist almost, right? But you're applying it to all sorts of extremely real-world data and real-world behaviors and real-world effects. And so that requires orthodox analysis. So in my educational ascension, I had to go through and become very familiar with and competent in many different sciences and many different fields of study before the philosophy started to become practical or applicable in almost any capacity. Now, it was fun early on to try to sort of jump ahead to philosophy when I had a little bit of knowledge in certain areas. And I think a lot of people do. And I think that's, there's nothing wrong with that. But it doesn't become truly useful as an optimization tool for thinking and organization of thoughts until one has demonstrated some capacity for competency in a variety of disciplines, in my opinion. Now, I've talked to other people, and they generally agree with that it's good to do field study in other disciplines before rising strictly into philosophy, which can be viewed as strictly theoretical. I'm here to tell you that, although the practice of philosophy, although the analysis of it, the working of it, the meditation of it while you're absorbing it and organizing your thoughts, which is really the chief utility of philosophy, is that it gives the thinker an opportunity to organize their thoughts and come up with an organized approach to thinking. It's helpful, and I think even a prerequisite to have demonstrated some ability to show competency in other disciplines. So that when you get to a more theoretical level of the more mental and intellectual plane of philosophy, not only have you expose yourself sort of to the rigors of other disciplines with their data and their quantitative analysis and their more traditional things, so that you know you can do it and you know what you're talking about. It gives you confidence that you can move forward into a more mental area of discipline, because in philosophy there's not a lot of experiments. You can't really, there's not a lot of philosophy labs, right? I mean, that's kind of like, on a side note, that's kind of been one of the parts of my life, is that I decided that arts and entertainment and interacting with people was going to be my philosophy lab. But I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit there. In other disciplines, like for instance, when I take physics or chemistry, you do the intellectual study and you learn about the theorems and the laws and all the things that people have gone before you. Learn about physics, right? Like say they say, oh, today's we're going to learn about force, like the, F equals ma, force equals mass times acceleration, right? It's one of the basic physics formulas. And you go, oh, that's cool. And you sit around, you talk about it, and you do the math, and you go, oh yeah, well that all checks out. Then you go, well, let's go do the lab on it, right? And then what's the high school one where they put the bowling ball on the string, and you stand there and they swing it, and then it comes back just before your face, and and you go, oh, see, because there's drag and there's entropy and all these things, and it can't just come right back to the same point because energy is dissipated and all that stuff. You get a practical application, you get a nearly immediate visceral laboratory setting in which to prove these types of sciences. And it kind of goes like that through most of what they call like the hard sciences, whether it's physics or chemistry or mechanical engineering or whatever it is. You can directly go in and sort of like, okay, cool, here's the intellectual portion, and let's go see the practical application of this in the laboratory, and you can do these experiments. And philosophy, that's a much taller order, because philosophy tends to be happening up in here a lot of the time. So it's really important to understand that it's an opportunity to organize your thoughts and come up with a system of organized thoughts, because we exist in an environment in this world which is a vibratory environment. And by vibratory environment, I mean that all of the reality that we're in are vibrations. In fact, our five senses are the only reason that we know we're even in the environment. And all our five senses do are act as vibratory interpreters of the waves, the vibratory waves and energies and frequencies that are coming into our experience. So whether it's like the eyes, the ears, the nose, the touch, the visual acuity, we're just translating vibrations. And all of those vibrations all of those vibrations are being centralized in areas of the brain for interpretation by the brain as it goes into higher functions, right? But that's what we're working with, right? And all of these mechanical vibrations that get put through our body senses and being rerouted into our brain, at a certain point in our brain, are being turned into electrochemical transmissions in our brain that we call thoughts. And it's in that area that we're sort of self-programming with philosophy, or we're opening a door to that area of our brain where we can organize and format the thoughts, or have a concept of how we want those incoming thoughts and vibrations to be organized in a higher form. Now, it's well-established science that human brains basically have, they'll say inherited DNA worldview, right? We have multiple different versions of basically different animal brains working inside our same cranium that we have inherited from however long, millennia, eons worth of human evolution out of the animal kingdom. And so we've inherited, through our DNA and through our initial biological setup, an initial operating platform that occurs in that area of our brain. And this isn't an anatomy class or a physiology class, I won't go into all of them, but each area of the brain has a different operating system in terms of its organization of the vibrations that are coming in. Some are more primal, and you can kind of the brain sort of ascends in its organization format of these vibrations coming in, beginning with the basics are like, you know, survival based, like Maslow, the hierarchy of need pyramid. It's all the first level of the pyramid. You know, it's like getting the food, not getting killed by animals, finding shelter, procreating. You know, it's like these like real basic thought formations that keep us in the game on the animal level for survival, and then they build up as you get fancier, right? So philosophy, especially at the level that we're sort of discussing it, comes in to say, okay, cool, you got that now. Now, wouldn't it be nice if you had a more sophisticated organization of those thoughts? And it's a system where, let's say you scan this system and you go, okay, cool, like a thought comes in here and then it goes through this system, and then out the other side there's going to be a result. It's either going to be a thought, a concept, a worldview, whatever. And that's essentially, in philosophy, you go, okay, that's what we're looking at here. It's almost as though you're playing a video game and you go, oh, what video game do I want to play? Oh, well, that, you know, if you take this cartridge, or you pick this game, you know, if you pick a first-person shooter game, put it in, what you're going to get on your TV is first-person shooter game, right? Or if you want a role-playing game and you put that into the console, then what you're going to get on your TV is a role-playing game, right? It's the same thing with philosophy. Philosophy is a system of thought that once you decide to put it in your head, you're going to see that version of the video game, essentially, right? And you're the one doing the programming for it. And so in these beginning stages of philosophy, once you understand that it's an organization of your thoughts that are going to lead you to having a particular view of the world, and it's going to, in some cases, allow you to achieve certain effects in the world. Like once you start absorbing these, or one starts absorbing these systems of thought, we cease becoming just a primitive survival mechanism, and we start becoming a cause in ourselves. We start to become the cause. And instead of living in a world where all the effects are hitting us and the world's causing us in a way that we've become the effect of the causes of the world, philosophy allows a person to start becoming the cause more often than not. And then the world starts becoming an effect of our cause. And that's where true self-empowerment comes in, is when a person decides that they would like to become the cause of the effects in their life. Now, you can't control it all, and that's deeper down the philosophical rabbit hole. But when you cross-reference it with many other philosophers throughout the ages, and by reading their works and by reading the historical accounts of the effects that they've had, you come to the conclusion that this is in fact true. This is a thing that can be done by human beings. It has been done by multiple human beings, and it's really beautiful in the respect that it cuts across any experience in the human condition. There's no barrier to it. There's no barrier. It doesn't matter what your IQ is. It doesn't matter what your body is. It doesn't matter what your gender is. It doesn't matter any of it. It doesn't matter how able you are. It doesn't matter what religion you are. It doesn't matter what your belief systems even are. Because you can take in as much as you want, because essentially all you're really doing is you're doing orthodox analysis of the thought processes of other human beings and doing relative differential analysis in your own mind to achieve an effect for yourself of the organization of the way you want to organize your own brain, which is the ultimate liberation in the human condition, is to program your own mind. And philosophy gives everybody a door to do that if they want to, if they so choose. So by doing these orthodox layers of analysis, it doesn't matter what area of life you decide to start viewing other people's thought processes at to determine sort of like how they're doing it. It can be, I mean, honestly, it's why, for instance, like so many men enjoy sports deep into life, right? And in the beginning, the fascination with sports for most men is just the athletic display, you know, because we've all played childhood sports, and it's fun to, you know, if you play basketball and you can't dunk a basketball, it's fun to watch a guy on TV dunk a basketball. You're like, damn, that's amazing, right? Or, you know, a really good golfer can hit the, you know, he can hit a 300-yard drive, and that's just amazing. Or the great tennis player hits the really fast serve, or the figure skater can make the really big jump. Whatever it is, right? There's the athletic fascination of it, which is sort of juvenile or adolescent, and that's fine. And you also get to see how gravity works and all these other things. But what really keeps people coming back, especially like, you go, why do so many grown old men keep watching sports deep into their life? It's because you start to get to see the thought processes of the people involved in the sports, you know, all the way up and down, from the players to the coaches to the managers, and you really get to start to see the practical application of their philosophies. It's really what it comes down to, is everybody's just like, okay, and it doesn't matter what the sports are, because when you start studying sports as a philosophical phenomenon across time and space, across all the globe, you know, that you find that these guys and these women, they have these similar things in mind, right? Like, it doesn't matter. You can look at 19th century English cricketeering, you can look at 20th century South American football, you can look at modern American baseball or American football, and you'll find that the winners and the losers and the dynasties and the continual cellar dwellers, they start to trend in similar ways in the way they approach their mental approach to their sport. And that's really just philosophy, you know? Like, I'm a Los Angeles guy, and I grew up I'm a lifelong Lakers fan. Grew up in the early 80s with, you know, Magic Johnson and Pat Riley, and we had Showtime, and it was super glitzy and it was super fun, and it was like hardcore rock star mentality, highly creative form of the sport. That was really the calling card, was just high creativity, high teamwork, and it'd be aesthetically pleasing, right? And then later on, we get Phil Jackson, who is famously called the Zen Master. And then we get this form of basketball that's basically the opposite of Showtime. It's this like really egoless, well, not egoless, but like, well, kind of egoless in terms of like everybody gets their roles, and there's this whole like Zen mentality to it. And not just the one game, but the whole season and the whole approach to winning championships. And so, you know, we got to experience winning titles under Showtime, which is just like perfect LA Hollywood, pop the champagne, throw dunks, alley-oops, like, let's win titles, let's look good doing it, and like, you know, have a good like bit of an arrogant streak, to you get like the Zen Master approach to winning titles, where it's this very egoless sort of role-based team mentality and very flowy, and you know, they both won titles. But you got to see the distinct philosophical differences of the coaches in this case, you know, Pat Riley and Phil Jackson. And, you know, obviously, and with the Lakers, you know, Jerry West being the guy that sort of oversees most of it anyway, and Jerry Buss for a long time. And you can apply that to anyone. You can apply it, whatever. It's like, if you're a Man City fan, you know, like if you like, you know, you're an Olympic team fan or whatever, you see that. You know, boxing's a great example. The great trainers in boxing, it's not really about the boxing for them, is it? It's really about their personal philosophy on life and this and that, and like the training and everything's just, it's a physical manifestation of their philosophies. So, in my case, I studied philosophy at West Point, and for those of you who don't know, it's the United States Military Academy at West Point, and philosophy is not the first thing that comes to mind when people think of that place, because it's one of the best engineering schools on earth. And while I did take a heavy load of engineering, I did major in philosophy, and I found them to be the perfect complement, because I did all the hardcore engineering and the math and everything. And my teacher at the time, my main mentor, Dr. Quinlan, he had a famous quote where he said, "Marry the science of your day and you will be a widow in a generation." And so philosophy ended up being the mechanism for me to not have to get married to the science of my day, which Carl Jung would later show that to be in the spirit of the times is when you get caught in the moment of that type of thing. And really with philosophy, we're trying to find a bridge to the spirit of the depths, this underlying bridge to creation itself that underlies the daily stuff. And philosophy acts as that bridge, in my opinion, and it starts with the organization of the thoughts. So I was really doing these orthodox analyses in every field that I could, across just everything, just as much as I could take in. And I would see what worked and what worked and what worked, and I would put them on top of each other. And because I think differential analysis being like you just put one thing side by side, right? Like I just do with you got Pat Riley and Phil Jackson's Lakers, right? Well, for those of you who know basketball, your brain's already all the differences between those two guys. They both got to be the head of the Lakers. They both only got to put 5 guys on the floor. They both had to play games in the NBA, right? All the other factors are pretty much the same. But when we put them side by side, all the differences start to pop up on their own. Well, that's what differential analysis is. And that's what I started doing, was just layering all of these orthodox analyses, one on top of the other, on top of the other, on top of the other. And then, because then you can look down from a philosophical point of view, and you can start to see the differences, and you can start to see what resonates. You can start to see the vibrations of things that were true. You can see the connected wisdoms in these different forms, these different systems, these different forms of thought. And that's the key when you're beginning in philosophy, is there's causation, there's these basic building blocks, and you have to do the orthodox analysis at first of each of them, because so many people have already done so much of the legwork for us that you take the time, and you can take a half hour or an hour or whatever it is a day to study a particular area of orthodox analysis, and you can get downloaded with 50, 100, 200 years worth of information. That's where the power in philosophy comes in, because the power comes in finding these high leverage ratios, so to say. So by the end of a term of study, if you have this in mind, that you're picking up wisdom and you're picking up systems of thoughts and tested systems of thoughts that maybe people have been wondering about for thousands of years, and then somebody dedicated a life to studying it and they knock it out. Okay, cool. Now you got 2,000 years worth of thought experiments of value in your head already, and that's just one piece, right? And you start stacking those on each other. I mean, big data is nice. It's on the tech side, they go, "Oh, let's get big data and do this," and well, big data is nice, but philosophy is the original big data, because you're taking in so much data and so much wisdom. It's crazy, right? And then the wisdoms start to harmonize with each other. And in my case, I had been doing an army career and doing all this other stuff, and I was always keeping this in mind, because at the end of the day, no matter what I was doing in the real world, whether I was flying helicopters or doing war planning or whatever it was, at the end of the day, I would come back and I would put it into a philosophical analysis to go, okay, cool, well, I lived my human day, so on the mental plane, how does this all feed into this? Because I had organized a decent format for my thinking during my university time. And so I was getting results. So in effect, I was turning myself into my own laboratory. I was making my life my own laboratory, which was making my life meaningful. It made people go, what's the meaning of life? Well, that's up to you, right? For me, I decided the meaning of my life was like that I was going to use my life as a thought experiment or a philosophical laboratory to see what life was about and like test out some theories, some hypotheses, see who was right about stuff, see who was wrong about stuff. And when you get enough data and you go, oh, okay, well, this is correct, or like this person's stuff is legit and this person's stuff is legit, or like this system is kind of bullshit, or whatever. When you get enough data of living life openly and objectively as much as possible, then the things start to filter themselves, right? So I had all these orthodox layers of analysis going on, and I was using myself as a thought experiment, and then answers start to arise on their own. Clarity starts to come in, and bigger pictures start to avail themselves. They just will literally start to present themselves to me deep in this journey. And that's what led me to a lot of my artistry, public performing especially, but just entering into the public sphere. Was I had done enough of this sort of personal experimentation with myself as a thought laboratory, and in the natural actions and the momentum of all of that led me into, okay, well, let's take it out into the world with these vibrations, with these frequencies, with these transmissions, with these philosophical ideals or thought processes, which are always malleable. They're always adjustable because they're still in accordance with the scientific method. You know, that's the other thing too, is like there's no final answer for the philosophy. That's typically when you do that, you veer into fascism or totalitarianism or authoritarianism on a personal level, or you know, you become an ideologue. You go, oh well, I found this one very rigid series of thought, even if you think it incorporates everything. It's like, no, it's a malleable thing. It keeps going and it keeps growing and evolving, and that's the key, is to ride that. And the orthodox layers of analysis and schools of thoughts that I led and sifted through by using my life to give them meaning and value resulted in me living what appears to be a very unorthodox life, or having a very unorthodox approach to things, when in fact it's not. In fact, it's the opposite. I built it on completely orthodox analysis and scientific experimentation, give and take, and taking in results, and like trying things and discarding things that don't work, and keeping things that do work, like regardless of my personal opinion about the matter. And even though it looks as though I'm doing things in an orthodox manner, it's actually incredibly orthodox and almost completely by the book. I'm just working with factors and working on levels that people just haven't really been apprised to. And when they do, and they can go through sort of my work, they go, oh yeah, okay. Because as a philosopher, I've taken lots of notes. I have manuscripts that I don't publish, and I have lots of notes that I've taken that I don't share with people yet, because my life's work is my life. And so philosophy never promised me anything about giving me the meaning of life. They've always kept that very vague or whatever. They never promised it, because it's not a religion. It's just you know, it's a way to think. It's a intellectual pursuit, you know. But it turns out, those sneaky guys, it turns out that it did give me meaning to life, and it did make my life. It gave me a reason to engage in life. It gave me a motivation. It gave me skin in the game. It made it fun. It made life a living laboratory to get involved in, right? And one that doesn't require any zealotry, one that doesn't require any, there's no motivation in terms of like trying to affect other people in a particular way to satisfy the philosophical side. Because the philosophy, it's good enough just to observe and interact and like get true results without, in fact, coercion spoils philosophy. You can't really go out and coerce people to like do it, because then you go from being a philosopher to being a cult leader, and that's no bueno. So it gave me this independent studies version of life to go out, which does populate with meaning, and it does give it fulfillment, and it does make it fun, and it does keep it engaging. because it builds on itself. And as it builds on itself, you find yourself getting invested in your life. And once you get invested in your life and you get emotionally invested in life itself, and you've become the cause and life is sort of the effect, although that changes based on, you can never get too big on life because life will tidal wave you and let you know who's in charge. But up until that, you start to feel like, okay, cool, I am here, I am existing, I am interacting, I'm causing things, and I know how to analyze what's coming back. So I know how to navigate, and I know that if I change the way I think and if I change my perception philosophically, that the nature of my life changes and the nature of my experience changes, both emotionally and mentally. It begins mentally, but overall life is mainly a very emotional experience. It's almost predominantly an emotional experience. Like once you get the things squared away upstairs, and to me that's very exciting. It's where you're trying to get to in the human experience, to be able to go, hey, I can program myself to go out and try stuff, and if I don't like it, I can reprogram myself, and I can learn things, and they seem to go with me in this seemingly ineffable experience. It makes the ineffable experience much more concrete, and it gives me something to take away from it, like regardless of all the traditional worries of life, of jobs and spouses and functions and meanings and importance and needing to be felt by everybody and all those things, which they're fine, they're all valid experiences, and we all on some level desire some of them some of the time, no doubt. But when you get to this level, those all sort of subside. They calm down because dang, I'm in this and I'm having an effect and it's real. And when you do it enough, you feel it inside that it continues on with you. And that's where that to me, that's the fulfillment, is that the life I'm living is valuable to me. And I carry that with me wherever I go, and it continues. And I do find that the more I do that in harmony with the vibration of life itself, the better the feelings are, the better the experiences are, the better the effects are. So philosophically speaking, the journey continues because it's all self-check. And I mean, thanks philosophy, right? So to kind of sum her up here on Philosopher's Corner, many layers of orthodox analysis led me to seemingly an unorthodox approach to life. And maybe that's what Jung calls individuation, and maybe that's what you call a happy and fulfilled life, or maybe that's what you call self-actualization. I'll leave it up to you. But I can tell you that philosophy delivered on its promise to me so many years ago of giving me the tools to navigate through life in a way where I feel like I'm participating and co-creating in it, and it feels good and it works. So I hope you have a great day, and I hope you have fun with philosophy.